right? So what I typed was naming ceremony designs. Now I already see one that I love, right? And I can I can check this one, this particular one, and I will just copy it or I'll download it. It's loading, so I can just copy it or download it. So I'll copy it, right, and paste it inside the Photoshop. So copy image. So I do copy image, right, and come to Photoshop. Upon opening Photoshop, now how do you create a new file? You come to new file, right, or you come to file and say new. Come to file, new, and you create a new document. So the document we want to create this time around is not a perfect square. We want to create a long format, right? The size of that one is 1080 by 1350. So let me drag this into my second screen so that you see it. So you will see it here is 1080 by 1350. Make sure that it's pixels, right? The resolution should be 300 ppi. Then RGB color, background, leave it at white, and just create the document. Now, upon creating that document, so this one is showing something else. Let's just do this. Let's change the size. 1080 by 1350. Resolution 300. Right. And then you just click OK. You can title it. You can change the title. Naming ceremony. Right. And just click on OK. And just click on OK. You know we've copied something from Pinterest already. So when the document opens in Photoshop, we'll just paste it inside Photoshop so that we can use it as our reference, right? We're not supposed to copy directly, but we'll just use it as reference, look at how they designed it, and just go ahead with that. So we've created this document, naming ceremony. I can just press Ctrl V. When I press Ctrl V, that one that we look at it now is here already. So let's first create the background. I like the background. So what do? I come to the rectangle tool. I will draw a rectangle at the background. I'll draw a rectangle at the background. Please, just hold on for me. So yeah, we pick the rectangle tool and we draw a rectangle in the background, right? And I already have a few color of this very beautiful blue, right? So, but let's look at what comes up, right? Remember, Photoshop works with layers, right? Remember, Photoshop works with layers. So you click on layers to see what you are working on. So this rectangle covered that layer because it is above, it is on top on the layer. So you can drag it down below, right? You can drag it below, and then you can now see the design to probably copy the colors. I don't want to use this deep blue. I can still maintain this blue. So how do I add this gradient fill? There are different ways to do it actually. Different and several ways to add this gradient to it, right? I can either use the brush tool or I'll double click and go to the gradient. But let me use the brush tool to create this lighting that you are seeing. So I will create a new layer. I'll come to where is it this plus icon? Yes, this plus icon here. I'll create a new layer. So after creating a new layer, I'll, I'll now click on the brush tool, letter B for brush, right? Letter B for brush, you will see a big brush. If your own is not this big, you can click on arrow rectangle tool to increase it or lower it. Or you come up here, you come up here, you come up here to change the brush size. Can you see it's on 800 here, and leave it at soft. Don't make it hard. Choose one of the soft brushes here. Soft round, that's what you should choose. Soft round brush, right? So if I click on this part, it's going to give me the color that is here. Are you seeing where I'm pointing to? As I clicked on that part, it gave me the color that is here, right? I'll just hit Ctrl Z, and then I will change the color to that white color that I want, right? So I'll click here. I'll click here to change the color. I'll pick this color from this design, right? After picking color from that design, I will now go back to the brush tool. B is the shortcut for brush tool. So it's just a moment. So B is the shortcut for brush tool. You see that the color has changed at this point. So I'll take the brush tool and paint here. Right? I'm trying to achieve that fill at the base. Now we've done that one for the base. What if we want to do for the top, this top part that is different color, right? You can change the color again. You can change the color again. Pick this color at the top here. Most of the time you pick color from your images, right? But let's pick the color at the top here. Let's have it very nice. So we want to pick the color. When we pick the color, you select it here and we click OK. And then we will now paint also with the brush at the top. We are still using the brush tool. We'll paint to the top with that brush like that. Right? We've achieved what? The background. We don't want to copy directly the background that they have, but we've achieved what they have in the background. Next, you can create these rectangles for date and the venue. You can create the rectangles because I love what they did there, so I want to use the same rectangles, and I will go and use the flowers also. So pick a rectangle and create your own rectangle also. We might decide to use a different color or just copy their color, right? So pick the rectangle tool and create a rectangle. You can round the corner here. Now you might not see the rectangle because why? Is under this. So I'm bringing that rectangle up so that I can see it. So I can see the rectangle now, right? So after the rectangle, I will duplicate it. So Ctrl J duplicates. I think it's a little bit different in CorelDRAW, right? It's different in Adobe Illustrator too. So, but in Photoshop, Ctrl J is to duplicate. Right? So we've done the what? The rectangles. We've drawn the rectangles. What next? So after doing these rectangles, let's just go and look for flowers, right? So I usually look for flower inside FreePic. We'll come and look for flower inside FreePic. Though it might come as an Illustrator file. I'll just type flower BG. Shortcut for background is BG, right? So I'll just type that and search. So we'll look for that flora, or we choose flora background, or just let's keep searching. So these are part of the design process that takes time. Searching for background, searching for the right images, right? So it's not like you just design chap chap, you don't send down. It takes a lot of time. So let's see. So if we don't see what we're looking for, we can go and pick that flower from a wedding card. Wedding card, this thing, and just use it because it will save us a lot of stress. Can you see this one now? That's one flower there, right? But we'll still look and see if we get something similar to that one, right? Right. Let's just look a little bit further. So this is part of the process that takes time, and you just keep looking and looking. So I'll pause the recording for now till we find it so that it's not too long. So I will I will turn off the eyes of all these saved dates so that I can be able to pick the flowers alone. Also the text, I will turn off the eyes of the text. I'll turn off the eyes of the text and then do what? I will now copy these flowers. What's happening? Just a moment. I think I've turned on another layer, another part of the design. Okay, so I've turned on invitation, which I wasn't supposed to. So I'll turn off this invitation that I've grouped already, right? So I'll be able to see the other. Can you see now? Um, so I'll lock some layers so that I can be able to pick the flowers alone, right? So let me now turn off the eyes of all these texts. So texts, they are all grouped into one layer. I'll turn off the eyes. You see that everything will disappear now. So when they all disappear, the name will disappear. Which one did I off again? Invitation. Let me try to turn off invitation. So the reason why you're turning off all these layers is so that you can be able to pick the flowers alone. So you can pick them, you know, one by one. But I want to be able to select everything at the same time. Right. So if I come to this top and I select these flowers at the top, right, you see that I can select everything and let me move it and see. So you see that when I'm moving it, it's selecting save D alongside it, right? So I'll hold shift and click away from save, hold shift, click away from, hold shift and click to deselect, right? So let's just drag this into um, our document, right? So we are picking resources from this document and we want to drag it into untitled, or is it naming ceremony now? I think naming ceremony. entitled it right, or where are we even working? This untitled. Let's just drag the flower in. When you drag it in, you see that it's very big. So the other time you were not seeing the transformation controls to be able to reduce it. So you have to tick at the top here, show transformation controls, to be able to adjust anything here. So I can then adjust this like so. Just a moment. So it's saying these fonts are missing blah 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 because it carried a font. So you just say transform, Jerry. Transform. So I'll reduce it. Sometimes this might take a while. It's always very annoying. So this is how I want to use, right? So sometimes designing it, you can already put all your text on the design before you bring in all these flowers because this thing takes long, right? Or you put the flowers first and then start putting your text. Depends on which one you want to. So also choosing the right font and all that matters, right? So we have that already. Now this is disturbing me at this point. I will I will turn off the eyes so that I can see my design at this point. And the first thing we will type is naming ceremony, right? So um, there's a font called Gallings. I think that's what we use. I think that's the one I remember. Uh, so I'll change this and just type naming ceremony. Let me just replace this font. Our design is coming together. So I'll type what? Naming ceremony, right? So I broke it into two lines. I will do Control A, select everything together, and I will change the font to the font I know. I think Gallins. Let's try Gallins and see if I still have it. There's another font I'm still trying to remember the name, but you don't have to cram fonts, right? I know the Gallins because I've used it times without number. Sometimes you have to search the fonts one by one and scroll through it to get it right. So let me just type Gallins. So yeah, I have it. Gallins regular. I'll type that, and you see what it looks like, right? Looks pretty nice. And then you just effect the change after selecting the font. Now, something else I usually do is I'll space it. I'll adjust the spacing, right? I'll adjust the spacing and all. So you see that the space between the R and E, everything is just too much. So come and change this to first change this to auto. Let's see. First change that to auto and let's see if anything changes. Okay. Now the gap is too much. But first, that's the first step. Change it to auto and see. Now, this V over A is called the tracking, right? It's called the tracking. So it's the space between every letter. So I normally change the tracking to let's say -50. I love it tight. So all the letters will not look like they are plain. They're not like they're not together. So you will see you will see you will see that everything has come together, right? Now remember that we changed this to auto. You know I'm recording. Now I can reduce this A over A. This one is called the leading. Now these are things that you should know. Lead space and track space. Now the leading is the space between the lines of each of the, how do I explain that now? Is the space between this first line and this second line. This space here in the middle is the leading. If there's another text again, the space between them is the leading. So we'll reduce the leading because it's too wide. We reduce it. You know it's on auto. So we take it down. I don't know, this thing is just hanging. Sometimes this thing might not work. I'm trying to read. So annoying. So from that auto, let's just choose 8 and see. I don't know why it always do that. Does that all the time. So let's choose 8. It will close. Now you can now come to this A over A and click and then drag, right? So you click and drag to increase the spacing, right? At this point, I think I think I'm satisfied with around 30 or 28. Yeah, I think I'm satisfied with 28, right? So we leave it that way. We leave it like this at 28. So I want to put something at this top instead of putting a baby, just like that person did. Let's look at it again. Instead of putting a baby just like this person did, we can go and look for a baby. What do they call it now? Is it a cup or something? So we can go and look for that thing that they usually use to carry a baby, right? And put it at the top instead of using a baby because this is not the baby that they gave birth to now. So we won't use Oyibo baby. We go and look for something that represents giving birth, right? So we'll look for a baby's crib. We'll come back to free pick, right? And type what? Baby crib. Baby crib, right? And we filter to what PSD also so that we can easily just take one that doesn't have background and just use it in our design. Easy peasy. Filter to PSD. And you see we have some very very nice representation, very nice one that we're seeing here. Let's go further. Let's go further. Let's see if we can see something a little bit colorful. Right. So yeah, we're seeing some very nice one here. I've seen some that I can use, but I just want to go for that. So yeah, we've seen this script design of for a baby that looks really great. I can just download it, right? Download it and use it in Photoshop and put it at that top instead of using a baby because that's not the baby that was giving birth to. So let's just use something that represents, you know, newborn baby. So that's why we downloaded baby script, right? So we open it. Remember that we isolated it to give us, we filtered it to give us only Photoshop documents, which is great. Right. So I'll double click on this. Yeah. So after double clicking on that, I will still drag it into our design and place it at the top. Now it's big, so I'll reduce it. And just leave it at the top there. Our design is coming together nicely. We effect the change. Upon doing that, this needs to have shadows on the leg. It's like it's floating. So how do we add shadows to it? Very simple way. You create a new layer again, right? Pick the brush tool. This time, when you click letter B on your keyboard, right, to pick the brush tool. Now this brush is too big. You can come and reduce it, or you press the bracket key, the other bracket key to reduce, right? Then come to this arrow here, and you see this thing that looks like a compass. Compress it like this, so that you will see that the brush will turn to something like this. You can compress it more, right? The brush will turn to something like this. Now don't forget, you need to change your color. We change the color to black or something dark. Let me pick a color from the body of this thing and change it to something dark like this. Now you can now paint your shadow. Paint the shadow. Let's say the light is coming from this side, so the shadow will be going to the front like this, right? So that's one shadow painted. Let's reduce the brush like this with the bracket tool. Let's paint another shadow there. Increase it again with the bracket tool, bracket front and bracket back. Paint another shadow there, right? Then reduce it and paint the last shadow here on the leg. That wasn't painted very well. There, right? So the shadow is above the crib. So we'll take it down below the crib, right? And we've just painted shadows. Then you can reduce the opacity to, let's say, you reduce the fill, not opacity. Reduce the fill to, let's say, 59, 50 or 50%. And there you have it, right? You can still take time to do this. Some is still floating here. Come back here, brush tool. I'll zoom in to see, and then paint at this part, right? Zoom in to see, reduce the shadow, paint there, paint here, paint here, so that it doesn't look like the stuff is floating in the air, right? So there we've painted our shadow. If you zoom in, you see that it looks much more better. Another thing is, when painting shadows, this under of this crib will not be light like this, so we need to paint a bigger shadow but much more softer under this crib. So we'll come to the opacity of the shadow. We reduce the opacity to, let's say, 30, 29 or 24%, and paint under here. Just paint under here randomly, because under the crib, when light is shining to it, it won't be bright. You get, so just paint like that randomly, and then there you go. So we have shadows for the on. Let's reduce the opacity again, so that we can paint on other areas, right? Other areas that the shadow is not really strong. Paint and paint and paint and see. Okay, are we okay? We are good, right? So you see, let's look at before and let's look at after. So this is before. No, this is before. What am I even doing? Where's the shadow? I think layer 4. Another thing is always name your layers. All those ones that I'm doing click and so I'll double click on this layer and change the name to shadows, right? So let's see before the shadow and after. Yeah, the rest. What's wrong with this thing? But that's that about that. So I want to still reduce these flowers. But first, let me lock my background so that I'm not selecting the background. So I'll select all the flowers and reduce it a little bit more because it's occupying a lot of space. I just reduce it a little bit more, right? Have it this way, like so. And yeah, there we go. So naming ceremony, right? I want to change the color of this. I want to add gradients to it. So this is where I will stop this lesson. The rest of the thing is that you just add the date, time, and venue, right? I'll give you that task so that you can do that and just finish it up, right? So, but let me show you how to add color to this. There are different ways to add colors. You can click on the type tool and change the color, or you double click. If you want to add gradient to it, you double click on the layer, the naming the text layer, right? Let's double click and see where it takes us to. Showing in my other screen, I'll drag it in so that you can see. Right, so I'll drag this in. So I'll add what we call gradient overlay, right? I will add gradient overlay. Now, because I've used the gradient before, it's giving me that gradient. The color is very, very horrible. So I'll change the colors. I'll click at the side. I'll click on this gradient bar. I'll click on this gradient bar to change the colors of the gradient. It will bring the gradient editor. Click on this part. Come to color. Click on the color and change. I will pick color from this blue that is here. I'll change it to that blue, that particular blue. But take it to this part of the color palette, this part, or bring it lower. This is good. This looks good to me, right? Then I'll click that other part and also change the color. Let me change it to a more less saturated color than this. Let me take it up. I'll take my color slider up or down. This color looks much more better. I'll take it to the darker part of the color, and I have that gradient already. So there we go. I remember that the parent's name would be here or up here, anywhere. So remember we created these rectangles for the date and the venue, right? So you see our design is coming together, using a PNG crib for the, and the first place it all started from was the inspiration. You must get inspired by something and not just jump into the design software and start designing. That's the problem most designers have. And even when I started to, you know, so yeah. So let me look for the time and the venue. So I think the person who sent it to me. So I've copied the date and the time. So we just basically had the date, time, and the venue. and they are not so, they are not, everything is not big like that. Now let me copy and paste how the person that gave me this design sent it to me. I'll paste everything just like that. Now this is where your instinct, sorry, as a designer comes in, right? Now this is everything. It's very big. I'll reduce everything to like, let's say, I'll reduce it to 10 points. Let me reduce it to 10 points. Change it to auto. So you see that the date carries 8 to 2025, right? That's 8th of February 2025. So instead of writing 8 to 2025, I will write 8, put comma, February. Instead of writing full February, you just write FEB. Then 2025. We may not we may eventually not even use these people's the people that designed this initially. We may not use their, the one we were following. We may not use the templates, right? But let's see how it goes. Now the date is behind. The date is behind. How do I send it to the top without coming to layers and be moving and moving? I hold Control Shift and bracket key. Control Shift and brackets key brings it to the top or brings it below. Right? Control Shift and the bracket key. Are you see now? Saturday, February 8th February 2025. Right? Now I can now change the font. I want to use a font called Matter. Matter. A font called what? Matter. Because it looks very fine, pretty, and no stress. Matter. So let me look for Matter. Let's see, Matter semi-bold. See that? So Matter semi-bold. So yeah. So you see, instead of using 8 to 2025, right? Let's still go back. So let's still make reference to their design and see how they did it. That's why we still kept it inside the layers, right? So layer one is their design. Now let me send it to the top. Okay, not bad actually. 24th March. So Saturday we can break it. Saturday 8th February. Saturday 8th of February 2025. Like that, Abby. We can break it into the first. Uh, let's break 2025. Now we can use a font called Monument. Monument Ultra Bold. Right. we reduce the lead space. Remember what lead space is? The spacing between the lines of each of the text. We reduce it, and then we can reduce it to, let's say, 8 points, so that it's not too big. Then we change the color to white, because we are still going to change the color of the rectangle, right? So this rectangle is a gradient in their own design. Do you get? So let me show you a quick trick.
Yes.
Let me show you a quick trick that you can do. You know, this other rectangle too is blue gradient that they used. So the difference between our design and their design is that they use a different gradient for the name, they use a different gradient for the rectangle, which is not supposed to be. The name has purple, the rectangle now has blue. It's a little bit off, right? But this accent color for the date is good. They now use red for the venue, which is off. Just stick to 1 or 2 colors, at most 3 colors. Now, you know I've added gradient to this name. I will now copy, I will right click, and say copy layer style. Copy layer style. I will now come to this rectangle where I want to paste it and just right click, and I will do what? I will paste the layer style. So it will copy the gradient that I've added to this one and paste it here. Can you see what happened? Copy that gradient and pasted it here. So I will now be able to put what? My I'll be able to put my venue there. If I on this design, see where he put his time. That's not where he's supposed to put his time. Now let's do a gradient for this other rectangle. I'll double click on this rectangle. I want to add a red gradient to it. So I'll double click on the rectangle. So now we'll come to gradient overlay. The thing about it is it will give us the gradient that we have there already, but we want to use a red one. So now I will change the gradient, or I can do something and add a plus sign so that we keep this other gradient. But let's just change it. Let's change it. So I'll click on the gradient bar and let's just change the color. I just need to add red to it. I can leave the other blue side, right? I'll select this color and click on the red part. Can you see? It has given me gradients already. I can leave the other blue side or make it darker or something. I can change the angle, right? So that it can show very well that it's a gradient. Let's see how changing the angle helps. Let me change the angle. Let's change it to this side. You can see that, right? And then I can just click OK. So I love what you did here with the venue. I love what you did here with the venue. We can always create that, but because of time, let's just add our time. Let's just add our time. So beside the 2025, we had what? 12 p.m. instead of having the time above there. So let's give space and add what? 12 p.m. Now the 12 p.m. can be a different color. Now the space is too much. So, or we take 2025 to the former line. This is where your design skill come in place. So can you see? Too wide. We can reduce Saturday to SAT. To SAT. Put full stop. The 8th, we can take it to the beside Saturday 8th. We can take it beside and break it at February 2025. Now we have something better. Select everything. The tracking is too much. So we reduce it to -25 so that we can see the letters in between. Now this 12 p.m. we can change the color. We can change the color. A color that will work well on this background might be something yellow, right? Might be yellow. Let's look at it. The color that will work well might be yellow color, something like that, right? So we have that. So you see like that. So that to distinguish the time. So we can zoom out and then we can have the address. Number 2. You don't just write 2, Solanke Street. To make it fuller, you can write number 2 or NO2. Write it, put Lagos State, so that it will fill up the rectangle. Right? So Control V to paste. Control A to select and change the font. Let's change it to our Matter font. It's Matter. Right? And we change it the color to white. Right? That yellow seems off there. I might change it after zooming in. I see that it looks very off. I think the red gradient that we are using that is looking off, because there's nothing really red on the design. You might have to use yellow. You might have to use yellow color for this rectangle, this particular rectangle, right? So I will send it to the top. Control Shift and bracket key to send it to the top. And then I will add number 2, Solanke Street. I see there's a mistake there. The Solanke is small letter. You will correct all that. That's what you should always look out for. Correct it. Akoka, Lagos. So everything go full. That's why we are doing all this. Or you leave it at Akoka. No, you leave it at Akoka. Then click effects to change. So yeah. So after that, mm, I don't like that this font is different from this one. It's not looking professional. I might just change this font back to Matter. Right? These are some of the things you also look out for. And this is my design process. And after I export this design, I will still see some little errors that I will fix. because you cannot see everything on your screen. So matter, I'll change that font to matter and change it to matter symbol. So the rest is just you adding the details and dates. So because I'm showing you a few things, right? Yeah, quite nice. So I'll reduce all these rectangles. These are some of the things you look out for. I'm holding shift while reducing this rectangle because it was too big. Right? I also said I will change this rectangle to yellow, probably yellow gradient. Let me go and see how it will look like. So I'll double click again, go back to the gradient. Let me change that red color to yellow because it really seems off, very off. Because my design is giving a yellow feel. Let me pick the yellow on this grid. I'll just pick the yellow on that grid and see. So that's much more better actually. Let me come to this side of the column up here. Right. Let me change this blue to a darker one. And I think in their design, the rectangle was overlapping. Check it again. So you do that and click OK. So the design is coming together. We need to place flower at the bottom too. Let's not forget that. So let me close this one. So I'll come and carry the flower that is at the base of this and place it at the base there. I think it's almost the same flower. But let me just select it. So it's not selecting everything. Let's see. So yeah, let me just merge them together. Control E to merge. So I'll merge all the flowers together so that I can be able to carry them at once and move it into Untitled. We've not saved it since we're supposed to even save the design. So it's very big. We reduce it. This flower, let it be big like this. Let me lock it. I'll delete the time and the address I had there. Get it. So yeah, let me just finish up the design and show you what I came up with. I might still change a few things here, like the arrangement of the dates, blah blah blah, like that.